And I want to welcome you. This is an Earth Day event. Today isn't Earth Day, but Monday will be. And forgive me for giving a small, non-commercial alert bulletin announcement to those of you who have been following a lot of internet alerts and so on about the Canada-China Investment Treaty. I just wanted to make sure everybody here knows that there will be a vote on the treaty. It's not necessarily binding on the government, but it was certainly very, very, very bad news for us should it fail on Monday night on Earth Day in Ottawa. So I know. So if anybody is willing to go to put as much pressure as possible on Conservative members of Parliament and Liberal members of Parliament, it is an NDP motion. There was a certain amount of strategy around that I regret that there wasn't a compromise when one was offered by the Liberals, but right now the Liberals are in the wrong, and we have to get them to change their vote. This is federally. So pressure, emails, social media, whatever you can think of, focused on the Liberal Party of Canada and Conservative MPs individually. Obviously writing to the Prime Minister's office won't help us on this one because the Prime Minister's already signed the treaty, but it's not yet ratified. So sorry for starting the film with an announcement that will make sense to many of you and might not to others. But Monday will be Earth Day, and to celebrate Earth Day here in Sydney, we have the enormous good fortune of being able to have the premiere of an incredible film called Salmon Confidential. We are very fortunate here to have both the filmmaker, Twyla Roskovich, as well as someone that I think we all know, the hero, the heroine, the scientist, the warrior in the fight for wild salmon. I'm going to ask Alexandra Morton to come up and introduce the film to you. I'll say after the film we will have a chance for questions, discussion, and Jane Sterk, leader of the Green Party of British Columbia, is also here. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm your Member of Parliament, Elizabeth May. Welcome to... I noticed half a tick ago that Gary Holman, the NDP candidate for North Saskatchewan, is here. I'll try to keep track of candidates of whatever political stripe as they come in so that everybody knows who's here. And with that, and also Adam Olson had wanted me to say he's sorry he's running late. He's at his sister's wedding. He'll be here soon. Okay, so I thought that was a good excuse, but you know. Anyway, Alexandra Morton and Twyla Roskovich, if you'd like to come up and introduce the film.
Good evening. Thank you for coming in on this gorgeous evening. I recognize many of you. We are in this together. There was a $26 million commission that was called in response to the crash of the Fraser sockeye. And the Fraser sockeye had been going down, down, down since the early 90s. And when they hit bottom, an extraordinary thing happened. Federal government called for an inquiry. And I was a participant of this, and a lot of effort went into it. 500,000 documents were submitted by the province and the federal government in regards to the decline of the Fraser sockeye. And I read as many of them as was physically possible in a 9-month period. I just sat at my desk and went through it, and it was one big aha moment after the next as I got behind the scenes and I read the emails and the databases and the briefings and the uncertainty and the thoughts of people in DFO and the provincial government. And then there was the court drama. And all these lawyers and their clients got to see really what was going on with many things. But for me, the biggest issue was the salmon farming issue. The courtroom was empty until the aquaculture hearings, and then it was full every day. And when the hearing closed, it reopened because of aquaculture issues. All of that would have been lost to you, the Canadians who paid for this, if it wasn't for this film. Twyla Roskovich is a filmmaker that I've worked with a lot over the years. And I said, Twyla, I really need your ability to communicate. I really need for this to go down on the record for Canadians to see. And much to my surprise, she did come up, she heard the call, and then when she did the film, she said, I want to tour it. And I said, okay, let's make that happen. And so we have been, I can't even remember how many places in the last couple of weeks, and she's been going even longer. So I'm going to introduce her. I'm going to give this mic to her for a second, and then you can see the work of many, many people. In the audience is Anissa Reed, who is a big part of this, a co-founder of Salmon Are Sacred. Other allies, and Sabre Woodworth, you'll see she has a starring role in this film. It really isn't just me, it's a lot of people. So without further comment, here is Twyla Ruskovich.
Hi there, thank you so much for coming out. You know, the biggest thing that I've learned on this film tour is that there are a lot of people who actually really care, you know, and I think in this day and age you can start to think, oh, you know, nobody cares about the salmon or the ecosystem, but every night you just run into many, many, many people who actually care, and that is really inspiring, so thank you so much for coming out. When Alex called me to do this, she called in July, and originally it wasn't going to be a documentary. He just said, you know, I'm finding this stuff in the salmon, and, you know, we need to get a, you know, can you come and cover it? And so, you know, when she originally told me that she was finding disease in salmon, and I was, you know, halfway through a boat delivery, and we were in Guatemala, and, you know, I was like, oh my God, disease in salmon. You know, it just didn't sound like a hot film. It was just like, oh yeah, that's a real winner. Yeah, a lot of people are going to watch that. Sure, I'll leave Guatemala and come back and, you know, leave my boat here and, you know, do this film. But anyways, I did. And so I just thought, all right, well, we'll just get to, you know, we'll spend a few weeks on it, and we'll throw together a little thing and get it out there. And anyways, so from the moment I got back, this whole thing has just been a pedal to the metal experience. Since mid-August. It's just been go. Because these guys were full swing, they were doing the sampling, they were hot on the trail of all of these different, you know, viruses driving all over the province, and didn't pay much attention to this filmmaker who was, you know, trying to run around behind them and capture what was going on. So these sort of films are a really organic process. You don't know what's going to happen in a documentary, so your job is just to turn on the camera and capture what happens. So you have no idea what the film's going to be. And we had no idea the film was going to be this. But, you know, it ended up, this was a very interesting story, and it led a lot of crazy places. And it speaks to a lot of what's going on in North America. You know, this is about salmon, but it's also about a lot more than just salmon. So, so then we ended up with this big documentary from what was going to be a little, you know, short 5 or 10 minute video. And the other thing about this thing is that, you know, we're being somewhat ignored by mainstream media. You know, this is a really serious issue, and this is something that, you know, people should be picking up on, you know, news organizations, and, you know, they're not really. But it's okay, because, well, we've been able to sort of bypass it. We're able to bypass the mainstream media and get it to you guys, you know, bring you guys up to speed on this, download this information so that we have an informed viewers, informed population, informed voters. This is a really critical time with this election coming up. We didn't time it with this election, but we realized we had this great film. We had a really important issue we needed to, that wasn't getting any, we weren't getting any movement on at all, any reaction. So, you know, we brought it into the election arena, and it's really picking up steam. We really hope that you'll bring this to MLAs, and that, you know, the wild salmon economy will make it into the ballot. Okay, thank you.
Over the years, I've been talking to a lot of politicians. This election is extremely important, not only to British Columbians and the wild salmon economy, but to the salmon themselves. And some months ago, the Green Party came to me and said, what do you think needs to happen? What do you think needs to happen with these salmon feedlots? And so I'd like to give an opportunity for Elizabeth May to speak, and then Jane Sterk just for a minute, because they have made an exceptional promise to wild salmon and British Columbians. So I'm going to turn the mic over to them for just a moment.
Before I say anything much about what we're going to do, I just think we have to stop for a moment and think of the incredible tenacity and resilience and courage of Alexandra Morton and Anissa and everybody in Salmon Are Sacred, because it's one hell of a fight. I'm signing up for the Department of Wild Salmon. Don't know how much good I'll be in the field, but in any case, I've never been so glad in my life that I don't eat farmed salmon. I don't know about the rest, like, oh. Anyway, I wanted to say quickly and succinctly a couple of things. I mean, the Green Party policy is that we shouldn't have any open pen fish farms anywhere on our coastlines, Atlantic or Pacific. It's a really big issue. But when I was watching the film of The Muzzling of Christy Miller, it was coming through my head, the words of the March 2012 federal budget: all government science will be, quote unquote, business-led and industry-relevant. Right? And the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and DFO both have conflicts of interest. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has a mandate to promote the export of Canadian foods. This is why it took them some time after the maple leaf listeriosis event occurred to be willing to admit that they knew where it was coming from, that they had to withdraw our products from the border. And that's why the XL beef plant with its E. coli was discovered by US border agents and not by Canadians. It was being reported in Canada, but CFIA, as that, I can't remember her name of the poor benighted woman on the camera, but she's constantly thinking, if we report a disease in Canada, we hurt Canadian industry. DFO also has a conflict of interest in promoting salmon aquaculture. They have yet to report on the findings of the Cohen Commission. It's been since November. They are way, way late in responding to the Cohen Commission report. There's been no official response from the Government of Canada, but budget of March 2013 allocated another $54 million this year to assisting in the streamlining of regulations around salmon aquaculture. So no official response, just more money. So there's a conflict of interest, there's a persistent preference for corporate profits over public health throughout the system, and there is the muzzling of scientists who might say something that would hurt Canadian industry, whether it's in the oil sands or the fish farms. It's completely consistent. You do not want evidence that gets in the way of corporate profits, even if it's killing your ecosystem, even if it runs a risk to human health. That's the federal scene. I'm doing my best, but I'm now going to tell you what Jane Sterk would do with the BC policies.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I don't know about you, but I feel like our democracy is a little bit safer since Elizabeth got elected as an MP to Ottawa. So Alex mentioned that the Green Party came to her. She and one of our candidates, Carrie Davis, were walking down the road, and she said to Carrie, "Your fish farm policy is terrible." And so I phoned Alex and I said, "Okay, our fish farm policy is terrible. Tell me what we need to do." And she says, "You need to revoke the licenses of all of the fish farms from the Fraser River to the Broughton Archipelago, along the east coast of Vancouver Island and the west coast of the mainland." And so I said, "Okay, that sounds like a reasonable thing to do." Supporting these policies, 3 policies. Then she said that in the industry, they've created a lot of processing plants that are really exceptional in their ability to manage soft flesh seafood, and there are all kinds of other things we could do with those plants. And so let's use those plants to the best to find substitute seafood products for that. So that's the second part of our new policy. And then the third part, of course, is about preservation of the employment for people who've been working in the fish farms. And so the third part of our policy is to ensure that there is transitional employment for the people who are in the fish farm industry and who need to be matched with new jobs. So that's the policy of the Green Party of BC. We're taking that into the election, and I hope that we will have our objective, which is at least to be official party status in the legislature, so that we can bring these kinds of ideas into the legislature and make sure that the government is willing to do what is right to save our wild salmon. Thank you.
We also have in the audience NDP candidate Gary Holman, and very happy that he came to participate in this and to see this film as well. Just a little update. The CFIA, recently I got a big positive ISA hit on some farm salmon raised locally. And I thought I would follow up this time on what happens to those samples when the CFIA confiscates them from Dr. Kabenge's lab. And so 10 days after the samples were taken from the lab, I followed up. I wrote to Kim Clotons, the woman there that was clearly distressed. And she referenced me to the man who was heading up the investigation. And he said they took the samples and he put them into ethanol, which means that they cannot be cultured. The First Nations, where I have raised my 2 children, between Knights Inlet and Kimcom Inlet, they don't want these farms. They've had zero tolerance and they are ignored. And Chief Bob Chamberlain went to Norway with me, and he gave Os Michelet, the CEO of Marine Harvest, a beautiful pair of silver wolf earrings to hear what he said. And I don't think she caught the significance of his gesture. But he said, "You are not welcome in our territory. You must get out." So it's a difficult issue, and I know this is a nasty industry. They have a phenomenal lobby. They have a phenomenal advertising budget. Right now, Grieg Seafoods at Farm Salmon in Gold River has an ad running, and it's a picture of farm salmon sushi. It's such a beautiful shot. You just want to eat that. And on top of it, it says, "Another wild salmon saved." That's what we're up against. So I know this can be done. I know it will be difficult, and I really pledge my support and my help all the way through this. You know, whether it's gathering thousands of people on the lawns of the legislature, which a lot of us did, or it's doing the science. I am going to keep doing that. I'm tired. I mean, Anissa Reid really deserves some recognition here. She has been at my side for years on this. There's a lot of others in every community that have really given so much of themselves to this. So.
Speaking of giving, how do we give you money? Not just a little bucket there. How do we make donations?
Thank you very much. So if you take the action sheet, it has it on there. It's unfortunately missing the charitable organization Raincoast Research. Just talk to us. There's 2 societies. Oh, good. You can write, it's on there. You can write us a check. You can go to Salmon Are Sacred and donate online. You can give us cash right now. I should add, that disease testing, you saw how expensive it was, $200 a fish. That is being funded by the business community of Vancouver. I have gone door to door on guys who like to go fishing